All right. Keyword crypto. That's what you're listening to right now. My voice. This is the voice of JJ. Where's Michael?
Hey everybody. This is Michael.
That's a different voice. All right. You're listening to a show where we just riff on cryptocurrency, where we don't want you to be a crypto statistic. We're the skeptical voice. What else are we supposed to say? Oh, yeah. Follow us on Twitter at keyword crypto. And yeah, what do we talk about on the show? Conspiracy theories and blatant holes in technology and things that people aren't talking about, and
stuff we just don't understand about and we have questions about.
That's most of what we talk about is stuff we don't understand, actually, or stuff I don't understand. You understand a lot of stuff. Me, I'm just clueless.
I don't understand anything, man.
All right.
I understand concepts. I don't understand technicals.
And today, where we wanted to talk, so we're pissed off at the capitalists again. Sorry for all the capitalists that are listening. I've been on kind of a rampage lately, but that's just because I think it's fucking crazy that we live in a world where like our phones are made by children. Doesn't anybody think that's weird? Like,
yeah, it's ridiculous.
Anyway, on to Andreas.
Oh, yeah. So JJ sent me a link to Andreas. If you're not following him, follow him. Do yourself a favor. If he's not your hero in crypto, there's something wrong with you. The guy is just a crypto god.
He's the crypto guy. I mean, he's the reason that we're all here, actually.
Yeah.
It's not like...
I mean...
If you found Bitcoin and crypto through podcasts and YouTube and all that, then he should be the first person that you go to, really, to learn about this stuff. Because he's not just a bastion of crypto knowledge. He's also a guy who represents education of all kinds. I mean, I listened to that podcast with him and on What Bitcoin Did with Peter McCormick, and like for the first like 20 minutes, all they talked about was like how he reads books like all day every day, basically, and that's how he's so smart. And like,
well, it works because the dude is really intelligent. He's thoughtful. He's empathetic. He seems to put his money where his mouth is, and he actually wants to help change the world for the better. And he kind of rails on capitalists. So he gave this talk in Argentina, the clip we're talking about, and he went on a rant against capitalism, and he started off saying that, we can't have zero-sum games. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's fucking bullshit, because anytime you have anything that's fixed, it's a zero-sum game. But then he kind of kept going, and he pushed past like the Bitcoin count of 21 million, and he was saying, and he was pointing, he seemed to be addressing the Bitcoin community in general, saying, you don't have a lock on technology. Like, all this stuff is open source. People can like shitcoins, and there's going to be amazing tech coming out of shitcoins just because people are excited about it. And when you have people who are excited about technology and it's open source, why are you trying to shut down other projects? It's open source. Learn from them, and if they have technology that could help you, make your project better. Like, that's the whole purpose of this. That's the whole purpose of open source and cryptocurrency, is to everybody kind of steal and borrow from each other to make the best products. And this idea that the Bitcoin community, and especially the Lightning community lately, have been just on full-fledged attack mode and kind of bandwagon monopoly mode of like, it's it has to be Bitcoin or nothing. It has to be Lightning Network or nothing. And you got the trolls, and you got the maximalists, and you got the red meat dinners, and it's just, I think he's a guy that got a lot of shit because he had the audacity to write a book about Ethereum. And all the maximalists were like, you're betraying Bitcoin. He's just like, it's fucking technology. Why are we going to limit ourselves to becoming better just because it's somebody else doing it on a different platform? It's just like, if you believe in the free market, if you believe in open source, you have to be open to shitcoins and altcoins and other projects, because that's how, like, competition breeds greatness.
His approach to the whole, like, basically the new New York Stock Exchange that is the cryptocurrency markets is actually, it's pretty interesting how he approaches that, because I think most maximalists just see like, okay, anything that's an altcoin is just a scam. It's just there, to be something that you trade as, and like that makes me not want to have anything to do with the altcoins. Honestly, it makes me want to actually think, yeah, they're all shit. But in the truth, I mean, some of them are trying to do things better than they think Bitcoin does them, and that's fine. I mean, maybe some of them will, maybe some of them won't. But yeah, you can't deny that they're there. I hear,
a lot of these. I mean, look, he said most of the people who work in crypto are amateurs, and he said amateur comes from the word amal, and it means like with love. And it means people who are doing it for the love of it. And you have to realize that most of these side projects, maybe not most, I'd say about a solid 2 handfuls of the altcoin projects are people who looked at Bitcoin and said, there's something wrong that I think I can fix with this new project. And so they didn't get ICO investors. They didn't get funding. They didn't get this. They didn't get that. They just started typing. They started coding on their own to create something new. And to sit there and call them shitcoins or call them scam artists when all they're trying to do is create something that they think will fill the holes that the Bitcoin community refuses to acknowledge exists. I think he's finally, and I appreciate that he's finally stepping up and saying, you guys are acting like idiots. Like, this is not beneficial for the tech community, because all you're doing is creating the Android iOS fanboy wars, and it's just like that. It's not helpful. It's. So I'm glad he finally said that, because I felt like JJ and I have been screaming about it for the last few months, and we don't have a big enough microphone, and he does. So I'm really glad that he has started to say that, because I've been asking him questions on his YouTube channel and on Twitter, and he's too big to reply to us. And I don't take that personally. Dude travels all over the world and doesn't have time to get into it with every single person who tags him. But like, I'm glad he's starting to acknowledge that this is an issue and really start to talk about it. And so,
yeah, and in that particular talk, my favorite thing, the thing that kind of touched me was when you talk about zero-sum game. What does that actually mean? That means in order for one person to lose, or in order for one person to win, another person has to lose. That's a zero-sum game. Like, there can only be one. And the thing is that he said that people often come to him with a project, and they say, oh, we've got this crypto and it does this amazing thing, and it's it does this, and his question to them is, great, how does it make the world a better place? And then they say, well, it makes the world a better place for the 4 people that created it.
Yeah, we're gonna make a ton of money.
We're gonna make a ton of money, and Andreas was like, so your plan is to make a ton of money for 4 people. That's not good enough. Like, try harder than that. Yeah. And I really like that, because I feel like so many of the problems in our world come from people just trying to make as much money as they possibly can for 2 people, for 3 people, for 4 people, or 1 person. I mean, think about what that does. I mean, I don't know. It's just like,
it's capitalism, and
sometimes I get tired.
Capitalism is a cancer, because capitalism is about maximizing profit for the shareholder at the expense of everybody else.
What I want to say though, I think I understand how it's easy to think that, like, oh, well, everybody has something that they can provide, and they need to convince the rest of the world that they can do that thing, and the world needs to pay them for that. But that's assuming that what everybody wants is money. And the thing is that not everybody can be the next Henry Ford. Not everyone can do that. Like, not everyone is born to be able to do that. I'm not saying that there are people who need the equality of opportunity or whatever. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about there are people who are disabled who just can't do the things that other people can. And like, I just think it's crazy that we put the goal of this world as make as much money as you possibly can for you, and that's what's going to drive everyone. Because what happens there is that it just creates a race to the bottom in every industry, and it will happen in crypto too if that's the thing that we're going for constantly. It's that eventually, like, there will be all we will value is how cheaply I can get things. That's going to be what we compete on. And that's not a very good thing to compete on. Think what that does to art and culture and music and all the things that actually make us entertained and enjoy life. If we're just thinking about that in terms of how many dollars it creates.
And that's what separates us from animals.
It does,
like,
yeah.
I mean, that's not true. Some animals create art, but like...
Not really, no. I mean, I don't think there's no animals that are going to cry because they're listening to music. But every human I know will cry when they hear a certain song because it reminds them of their father that passed away. Animals don't do that. So it is, to be human is to value these things that don't give us money. And like, you know, or even if you're not talking about just dollars, maybe that's not maybe you care about like social capital. Maybe you care about likes and follows or whatever. But as soon as you start like putting a number on things and you just go after that number, like that creates a weird world that I'm not sure we all want to live in. I understand the kind of the ambition, the drive, the thing that says I'm going to be great, I'm going to win. I understand that. But I think that we all need to kind of step back and go, what kind of world do we all want to live in the future? Is it the one where I succeed, or is it the one where like we all have better lives and we all enjoy life on this planet longer? I don't know. Maybe I'm just a hippie. Maybe I'm just a tree-hugging hippie.
No, I mean, look, capitalism has been trying to profit off of the intangible. And the intangible is always the emotional feel that people get from art and from hugging someone and from being a good person and from being empathetic. And they've just distorted it into, like you said, just a race to the bottom. Like, how can we capitalize on every single aspect of every single person's life? And that's a sickness. Because at a certain point, you stop thinking about people in terms of human beings and you start thinking about people in terms of commodity. And that's never a good thing. When you look at a human being and you say, how much money can I make off that person? That's bad. You're sick. You have a sickness at that point because you're no longer looking at a human being in terms of a human being who has thoughts and feelings. You're looking at them as a robot to provide you a service. And that means that you have a sickness. And the thing I like about crypto is that a lot of people are kind of realizing that capitalism is unsustainable unless you have slaves or low-paid immigrant labor. Like it's if you look at any capitalist society that's been successful in the history of our planet, you'll see that they've all collapsed once people stood up and said, "Fuck you, pay me a livable wage." Happened in Europe, and it's starting to happen now in America.
It's hard because, you know, like, because I think it's hard because the word capitalism, a lot of people associate with digging yourself out of a hole, and that's kind of a romantic idea. And I think that, and when you compare it to, whenever the government has its hands in the things that you're doing and they didn't ask you, then that's, you know, I understand that that's a little bit, that sounds like violation, you know. It's like, God, what, like, all I'm trying to do is make a little life for myself and my family, and I've got something telling me that I can't do that. I know that sucks. But the thing is that, I mean, I don't know. You should be uncomfortable with the fact that everybody you know has a cell phone made by children.
Yeah.
Like, we should all acknowledge that and acknowledge that that's fucked up. Okay?
Yeah.
Like, that there are slaves in the world, that there still are slaves. There are still slaves in America. Like, it's true. And like, if you ignore that, then you're ignoring the world. And maybe you want to live in ignorance. And okay, if you want to live in ignorance, then that's great, but it's not going to be a better world for your kids. It's really not. I mean, if you think that you're, maybe I shouldn't go there. Sometimes I wonder, like people who don't think about these things, and they think, well, I'll be dead before like those things become a problem, and my kids will probably be dead before those things become a problem. Are their kids? I don't know.
People
How far does that go?
If you have a chance to read a book, it's called.
If you have a chance to read a book, no one has a chance to read a book except for Andreas Antonopoulos, who reads 3 books a day.
I'm blanking on the name of it. It's.
I like when Andreas says when he needs to learn how to be more comedic with his timing. He reads a book on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's awesome. I need to read that book. Make me funnier. That Funny for Dummies book.
It's called A Nation of Sociopaths. How the boomers, something like that. Like how the boomers destroyed America, and it's true because he's going step by step of like our grandparents had a social agreement with our country, and everybody paid taxes, and we built out the infrastructure for the next generation. And if you look at the boomers, they have done zero infrastructure for this country in the last 50 years. Nothing. Like, we haven't rebuilt the roads, we haven't done this, we haven't done that. Like, all of our dams, all of our bridges are falling apart. Like, everything's falling apart because the boomers have invested zero into this country. They have strip mined our country, our infrastructure, and our financial system to give them as much wealth, and they're just going to fuck over their kids' generation. Me and JJ's generation. And the millennials. So the Gen Xers and the millennials are just going to get screwed because when the boomers finally die, we're not going to have any wealth, and taxes are going to be astronomically low, and our entire infrastructure of our country is going to start falling apart.
Some people are going to survive. The people who, the Henry Fords that put themselves over others, those people might be okay, but they're not going to be happy because they're not going to have enough slaves to work for them, I guess. Exactly. Or something. I don't know. They're not going to have enough children in Southeast Asia to make their phones.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're seeing a cultural shift with the Gen Xers and the millennials saying this is fucking dysfunctional, it's unsustainable, and, it's completely destroyed, it's destroying our planet. And so, like, we need to actually make a change. We need to do something different. But there's this thing. So I'm debating, with this guy on Twitter, and he's like, capitalism is the free market. Free market is the capitalism. Is capitalism? He goes, you need to learn more about business because business is capitalism. And it's just like, no, dude, you've been indoctrinated by American business school into believing that capitalism is the only way to run a business. And that's not true.
Business school.
There are countries all over the world that aren't capitalist that have successful businesses, that have rich people, that have wealth, that have accrued, like Sweden and Denmark and all these places that are socialist by nature, and they have a free market. They're free market socialists. Like Volkswagen is one of the biggest companies in the world. And Germany is pretty fucking socialist. Socialized healthcare, socialized medicine, socialized school, socialized, workforce. They have laws in place that 50% of all board members of a company have to be employees of that company. So they have equal representation on the board. So that way decisions are made that actually benefit the employee, not just the shareholders. And so, like, that's socialism.
All right. Let's talk about crypto. Yeah. Well, let's get back to crypto. We went off the rails there talking about Anyway, this episode is going to be called "Your Phone is Made by a Child."
So what the fuck is
What
up
else
with
is
Lightning
new?
Network? Holy shit! I feel like they're the new XRP army.
I don't know, because I don't follow a lot of maximalists. I think that for me, they don't really. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I need to follow new people
mean-
on Twitter because these people are just like
Yeah,
they live in a bubble, man. It's fucking crazy. That's why I was so excited
don't
when
know.
Andreas said that.
Here's a good question for the listeners. How do you choose who to follow in crypto? Are you following people because you think they're going to make you a lot of money? Because that's what a lot of people do. They follow the accounts that they think are going to give them the most heads up about tokens and coins that are going to move. And that's a very, very dangerous thing to do when you are taking financial advice from somebody who has the avatar with an animal on it and doesn't use their real name and
An animal with sunglasses.
Just think rationally about what you're doing with your money when you do that. I mean,
Yeah.
even if they've been right in the past, like think about
Hey,
that.
but Grosso coin
but-
pumped 2,000% today or something.
Yeah, Russell coin. That's my question: is who do you follow in crypto, and why do you follow them? Do you follow because you want to find out information? Do you follow people because they give you news? Do you follow them because you think you're going to make money? Do you follow them because they're funny? Like, why do you follow people? And that's a good question when it comes to all social media. Who do you follow? Because a lot of people don't realize this. I don't know why some people don't realize this, but who you follow and what kind of feed you get in your media really affects your life, because that is such a big part of our lives now. So think about what kind of life you want to have in your real life and in your digital life, and you better start going through those contacts and follows and filtering stuff out. Like, that's a really smart thing to do.
Deep thoughts for the day with JJ. But it's true.
It's not a deep thought. It's very practical.
No, it is a
actually.
deep thought, because you didn't just say.
You should see.
You didn't just say practical. You said, like, you're picking these people and they're affecting the way you look at the world. But you're choosing the people that are affecting how you look at the world. So you can easily change that.
Let's look at
and pick somebody else to follow and have them affect the way you look at the world. That's a deep thought, man. Because I don't think people realize. People keep thinking like, oh, the media is out there, the media, and it's just like, no. The media is what you choose to listen to.
It's true, yeah. So yeah, my feed is like some economists. It's let's see, I'm looking at it right now. Charles Hoskinson. Oh, I follow a couple accounts that just show pictures of cute animals. I mean, that's like half my Twitter feed is just like puppies and kittens, because Twitter is so bleak sometimes. But yeah, that's what I look at all day. It's puppies. Helps chill me out.
Good. That's good.
Yeah.
So you don't know what Lightning Network is or what it does, right?
I know I don't know what Lightning Network is, but I don't know enough about it to talk technically about it, really. What I understand about it is it's basically a second layer solution that allows Bitcoin transactions to take place off chain. And that means that basically, so transactions take time and they take money. They're expensive and you have to wait for them to confirm, which makes it very difficult to use Bitcoin practically. It's a big problem with Bitcoin, is that it can take hours for a transaction to go through, and it can be expensive, and that changes. So there's a network that's built that interfaces with the blockchain, that is Bitcoin, and it makes it so that you can actually send money kind of through channels that are already existing. So if I've already paid somebody Bitcoin and you want to pay that person and you've paid me, then all of a sudden there's a channel open to them. So that's kind of a network that sits on top. That's my ignorant understanding of it, is it sits on top and it exists in those sort of nodes. Now, it is also a system that is kind of an opt-in system. You don't need to use Lightning in order to use Bitcoin. That's not the way it works. And I think a lot of people misunderstand and think that, oh, Lightning Network is the new Bitcoin. It's the new way that you have to transact. That's about my understanding of Lightning, except for I know a little bit about what goes into building a node.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess the question I have is, the troll that's been trying to troll us on Twitter finally started.
You mean the frog?
Yeah.
The frog? He's not a troll, he's a frog. He's a persistent little frog, man.
He
must love you. He must secretly love you.
Triggered.
You guys are both such dicks to each other.
He's so insecure about
he's
Lightning Network.
Well, he's just like, he's out to get anybody who mentions anything about Lightning, and then you just sound super patronizing whenever you talk about
just
Lightning
to him, dude.
on
just
Twitter.
To him.
I find maybe just to him, but I've got to tell you, it doesn't. It sometimes it makes you sound like a child when you respond to him.
Well, I do it. I do it on purpose, just because he's such an asshole.
I guess so.
So it's
yeah.
I don't like. Here's the thing. Some people are like, well, I'll take the high road. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'll troll him back. Like, I don't care, because I'm asking a serious question. I'm like, okay, so I've been asking these questions because I said, hey, what's going to happen when you don't have rewards anymore for Bitcoin? Like, who's going to pay for that, or who's going to do this? And I keep getting these very like flippant, offhanded, like very, borderline disrespectful attacks back, saying, you don't know shit. Bitcoin's all about, confirming with the nodes. That's what creates the security of the blockchain. You don't even need the miners. The miners are unimportant at this point. And I'm like, that makes zero sense.
Yeah. And when the response is, well, you don't know because you never bothered to learn it, or when the response is you're an idiot because of something that everyone should know already.
Yeah.
It's just kind of crazy responses that sometimes you get from maximalists. It's
right?
like, well, you obviously are not smart enough, so you shouldn't even be talking about it in the first place. That's kind of crazy to me. That is. It's a little nutty.
I mean, it's mind blowing that someone's like, you should. So their logic is, you don't know, and the fact that you're asking a question shows how stupid you are and that you shouldn't be asking the question. I'm like, how do you get down that rabbit hole in your own brain to say that out loud to somebody and not realize that you come off like an XRP army fucking fanatic?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's maybe it's easy for some people to think that these questions sound arrogant, because I think that was this one guy's issue, was like, you're asking all these questions and your tone is arrogant, and you're asking all these questions when it's obvious in that tone of yours, that Twitter tone, that you already have an agenda and you already know the answer, and you're just going to argue it to death.
Yeah.
But the thing is what I find is, when I look at your tweets and your responses, is that, okay, I can see how they sound arrogant, but at the same time, you're not getting the answers. You're not getting answers. So, but that's the thing. It's like when somebody says, well, yeah, okay, eventually the mining rewards are going to be gone. So then, yeah, okay, how does that work exactly?
And he's like, well, Lightning Network is going to take care of it, because people are, the transactions are going to cost so much, and the miners, because the miners are going to have to pay for their electricity bills, that it'll shrink the cost because you can use Lightning instead. And he says that to me, and I'm like, okay, well then how the fuck are the miners going to pay their bills? If people stop paying the transaction fee to the miners and get the free transaction with Lightning Network, who's going to pay the fucking miners?
Okay, so let's break this down again. Let's make this easier for people listening to understand. So Bitcoin runs on miners, the people who actually get paid through the transaction fees and the mining rewards to make the network happen, right? And if Lightning exists, that's going to make it cheaper to transact. That means there's not going to be as much transaction fees going to the miners. Eventually, that mining reward that's built into Bitcoin, that's going to be gone. It's going to be negligible, basically. It's going to be gone by what like, year?
I think
when
it has
is it going to be gone again?
Or something like that, or one more halvening, or like.
I thought it was just 2 more halvenings and it's
no, because like once 21 million are produced, that's it. No more.
Okay. Oh right, yeah. Then we're out of Bitcoins to pull from. Right. So eventually there's not going to be that. So it's just going to be transaction fees, and Lightning is going to make the transaction fees nil. So that means how are miners
and
going
the thing
to
about the
Bitcoin
core code is that every over time it gets harder and harder and harder to confirm these blocks, and that's supposed to be the security of the blockchain. It gets so difficult that you just can't have somebody go in there and hack it with their computer, because you need all this computational power. So if they're spending all this money on creating this really insane amount of computational power, and people aren't paying for the transactions because they're using Lightning Network instead, how are these people going to pay their electricity bill? And someone turned to me on Twitter and said, corporations are going to pay for it. You're going to have mining companies. And I'm like, how the fuck are they?
Right, yeah.
What company is going to say, we're just going to hemorrhage money and pay electricity bills and not receive any reward and zero money for it? Like, that just, none of this stuff makes sense to me. And I'm asking these questions honestly, because it's like, it just, like, so I went to school for aerospace engineering. So I have a very inquisitive, science-based, math-based mind. Like, that's how I think. Even though I switched over to being an artist, I still think like a scientist. I still think like a mathematician, because that's just how my brain's always like worked. So when someone says 2 and 2 is 4, I do the math in my head. I figure out, okay, that makes sense. When someone says 2 and 2 is 5, my brain is like, well, that doesn't make sense because I have 2 here and 2 here. Show me. Like, I need you to show me, because it's not computing in my head. And
show me how that works.
And right now, how people are explaining what's going to happen when there's no more block rewards, or when they explain how Lightning Network is about a trusted third party confirming your transaction for you, and that's kind of the antithesis of the Bitcoin white paper, that just doesn't compute to me. And I'm like, okay, well, show me, because I do want to understand it, because if it is going to work, great. But right now, it like, no one's able to explain it. And then when you ask the question, they call you an asshole or a shill or this or that.
Or they say you're not smart enough to understand, and that's why you should just like stick to stupid people things. I mean, that's kind of the problem that I think no coiners really have. Like the smart ones that I know, it's like, explain to me how this Bitcoin thing is going to work again. And I think, one of the things that, I mean, I like what crypto stands for me is something that I believe in and I love. But I think so many of the things that crypto has created so far are kind of dangerous.
They're ticking time bombs.
Like, just it's kind of, and the fact that so many of these people who don't want to explain it. I mean,
I honestly think most people can't explain it.
Maybe that's just
but they've convinced themselves. Did we talk about the Flat Earth Army thing? So I watched the documentary on Netflix about
doesn't it?
The Flat Earth Army. It's really good. It's called like Under the Dome or something like that. Really
Left turn.
good.
Let's talk about that.
And they don't go in with an agenda to make these people look bad or make these people look stupid, or because they even say at one point, look, these people who are questioning whether the earth is round or not are highly inquisitive. And hold on. So they're highly inquisitive, and they're actually trying to come up with scientific experiments to prove that the earth is flat. And when that happens, people are making fun of them, but they're not making fun of them they're making fun of them for the wrong reasons, and then they shouldn't make fun of them at all. They should realize that these people are a product of the boomer generation education system that has made them scientifically illiterate and unable
Yeah,
to
totally.
use science to rationally figure out, have a hypothesis, use science, and then come up with the basic understanding of the results of their scientific experiment. And we should not like feel bad for them, but realize that these people are people who could have been scientists if our education system was better over the last 30 years. And we failed them. But
Yeah,
what they
that's
said was the
crazy.
most important thing that I took away with it was, he said, hey, like to like the most famous Flat Earth Army guy, he said, so what happens if you change your mind, if you realize that the Earth actually is round? And the guy's like, well, I my entire life is involved in this now. All my friends believe the Earth is flat. My entire business, how I make all my money, is about the Earth being flat. I couldn't change my mind even if I wanted to.
That's the way it is, and that's the way for a lot of people in crypto, and we sort of know it and see it firsthand for like people who have invested their lives and their money and their families and everything into this. They can't back out now. They can't say it's not true. I mean, I've heard people say the scientific method is shit, and it's like, to me, it's like,
Who said
what
that?
does
Like
that
in
mean? Does that
crypto?
mean- I mean, like,
Okay.
I'm not, but I'm not gonna say who it was. Like, I've heard people say that, and it's like, oh no, like, no. It's not that the scientific method is shit. It's that people don't report data properly, and if that happens, then yes, then the scientific method is not going to work, because the scientific method is based on presenting the truth and the evidence. So if people are not giving true data, then of course,
So
it's
this is
gonna
my
make
fear
science
about
look bad.
Bitcoin
So
and Lightning Network especially, is that
it's one
there are
of
these
my
ticking
fears, too.
time bombs, and I'm asking these questions. Other people are asking these questions. I'm not the first person to ask them. I won't be the last person to ask them. A lot of people are asking them, and instead of talking about it and saying, "Oh shit," I keep getting, "Oh, you don't need to worry about that for 10 more years," or "You don't know what you're talking about." Or like, no one's actually, so it's the whole thing of like, don't shoot the messenger. They're attacking the messenger as opposed to attacking the question, like actually attacking it from a scientific standpoint, saying, how can we address this? How can we fix this? Or saying, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. This is why it's not going to be an issue, A, B, and C. Oh, great. Send me a link so I can read it. Perfect. Oh, now I understand. Okay, great. I see what you mean. I see how it's not going to be a problem. Blah, blah, blah. But it's just like this idea of like, we'll fix it 10 years down the road. It's kind of like what I tell, like, I've been kind of mixing it up with people about nodes. And I'm like, look, if a person on a smartphone in Ethiopia can't confirm transactions of Bitcoin, then it's not decentralized. Right? And they're like, well, that'd be something down the road. And it's like, okay, that's great. As long as the people who are doing the main coding of Bitcoin, as long as that's in the forefront of their mind, this is the goal we have to get to. That's great. Because I understand, like, it's going to take time to get there, but I don't hear anybody talking about it. And that's what worries me.
I do hear people talking about that. I mean, actually, and I haven't heard people talking about it and doing it successfully. Those are two different things. I mean, I think that actually hearing like Dan Larimer talk about EOS, like, and stuff like that, he seemed to have that
in the Bitcoin
in the forefront of his
not
mind.
in altcoins.
He wanted
altcoins are talking about it.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I mean, yeah, they definitely are. I mean, that's like one of, totally. So I think that's, I don't know. That's one reason that, I think we can. I'll agree on that. That's Yep. I mean, really, like, if... Yeah, I don't know how to respond to that other than...
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the big problems with Bitcoin, is this idea that, like, nope, this is the way it's going to work. We know it's going to work because look at the last 10 years. That's the answer. Oh, you know, that's a big problem, actually. A lot of many people will think that their whatever they believe is true because it's proven by what's happened in the past. Like, is that because Bitcoin hasn't been hacked in the last 10 years, because it's still working, means it must be the best crypto.
Yeah.
It must be the one that everyone should use, right? That's pretty weird.
It's not very scientific.
That's not very good,
like,
especially when crypto is
progressive.
only 10 years. It's not very scientific. It's not very... I mean, to say that what you believe in is true because...
Yeah.
it's never been refuted. You know?
Yeah.
Nobody's ever proved me wrong for believing I can fly.
So, like, a perfect example, as I said, okay, you have something like Nano, right? And you're building a second layer solution for Bitcoin to actually make it usable for daily peer-to-peer purchases, like person-to-person purchases. Because right now you can't do that. Because if I go to try to buy a cup of coffee, I can't wait 10 minutes under perfect circumstances, 10 minutes to get a confirmation that I paid for the coffee. But if there's any kind of buildup, it's going to take way more than 10 minutes. So I can't do that. So you need, a second layer solution. That's what Lightning Network is supposed to be doing, is creating this second layer solution so you can do instantaneous transactions. But it doesn't really work, and everybody has to be on at the same time and blah, blah. There's all these major, major holes. And I'm like, okay, you have Nano right there. And it works every single time right now. Like a year and a half ago was having some issues because there weren't enough nodes, but now there's just a shit ton of nodes all over the world for Nano. And people are tipping YouTube people and Twitch people, and they're tipping people all over the place. Like, I don't understand why Bitcoin people wouldn't be like, hey, Nano works. Let's just steal that and make that our second layer solution on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I don't know. It's it's got a weird name. It's not Bitcoin. It's a shitcoin. It's on Binance. It
it's
can't be viable at all.
It's mind-numbing that they're not
that's a
looking at these
problem.
other technologies and saying, well, it's not Bitcoin, so it's got to be shit. It's got to be a scam because it's not Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's weird. How do you? I guess I don't know. Like, how can you be like Tone Vase and like devote your life? I guess it's because he's devoted his life to being
I think that's the thing. He's built
and,
his persona off of this, so he can't change even if he wants to, because this is how he's making his money.
Right. Yeah, I see. He can't. His personal brand is that, so he can't all of a sudden now say like,
which
actually,
makes me like, I question that about Peter McCormick all the time too, because like he's built this brand around Bitcoin. So what happens if? And he even says, he goes, "Look, I've got 2 kids that I got to feed. I'm a single father. I got this. I got that. Blah blah." Like, what happens if he did want to? What happens if he did come into contact with something that like was he was just like, "Holy shit, I've been wrong this entire time."
Oh no, actually, Peter McCormick, give him credit. He actually does change his views. He does. Like, I mean, last time he basically has opened up about that several times, where he's changed his views and he's no longer a maximalist
I
anymore.
haven't heard that, because every time I hear him, he's always just like,
that he can do that.
I believe in Lightning Network and I believe in Bitcoin, and I don't own any other altcoins now.
No, because did you hear the interview with Andreas?
Yeah.
Oh, you did? I mean, like, he actually said after talking to Andreas
I must have missed that. I kind of do stuff when I'm listening to his podcasts.
Yeah, it was.
So I must have missed that part.
Yeah, yeah. At the end, he said that. Who was the person that he talked to right afterwards? He said he was kind of afraid because he was going to talk to some maximalist that was basically going to tear him apart and tear Andreas apart. And like, because he said that now he's, after talking to Andreas, he's like way more open to to Ethereum.
Which is good, because I think Peter's got an inquisitive mind,
So.
but I worry sometimes. Like I brought up Peter because I like Peter. Like we both like Peter, and I don't want him to feel like
totally
he can't do that because his brand is blah blah blah. You know, but like a lot of these people have built their entire persona, their entire career around, you know, their brand. And what happens, and you have somebody like Andreas just easily transition, and you see, it honestly doesn't matter. Like it's possible because it's all open source, and like people change, and it's you know, it hasn't made him any less money, it hasn't made him any less likable, It hasn't made him any less intelligent. It's just he's growing, and I think that's what more people need to emulate him, in my mind. In the crypto community.
Yeah. And I think that one thing about this show that you're listening to right now is that like that's what we do is we adapt. One thing about this show I think that is unique is that if we find a question that we can't answer, then that pretty much becomes the episodic thing that we are trying to find the answer to. Like for instance, we can't really understand how Bitcoin can be decentralized if the miners are all centralized. Like that doesn't really make sense to us. If there's only going to be 3 mining pools or mining communities in the world, and they're going to be the only ones who can afford to mine because it actually costs money to buy the computer and equipment that it takes to mine. You need to pay for the electricity. Like that's not very decentralized if somebody who can't afford that stuff can't contribute to the network. So like that's a big issue that we have, and that's not going to change until we hear somebody who is able to convince us otherwise. And as soon as that happens, then we'll change our tune. Absolutely. Because and then we'll have another question that we were trying to answer.
Yeah, because most of these questions that we have,
I think that's what this show's always been about.
From somebody explaining something. And then us being, okay, great, wow. But what about this? Because that leads us to the next like natural conclusion. Someone saying like, well, you know, you don't need that because you got a lot of people who are confirming transactions on the nodes, and they're the ones who are decentralizing the network. And I'm like, okay, but right now a node costs minimum $300 just to build, unless you're rich already and you have these spare parts lying around. And the average American doesn't have more than $400 in their bank for an emergency. So obviously the vast majority of Americans can't afford to run a node. And if the vast majority of Americans can't run a node, then the vast majority of humans on the planet, because we're the richest country in the world, can't afford to run a node. That worries me. That like, if you're saying that people running nodes is what decentralizes the network, and the vast majority of people in the world can't afford to run a node to confirm the transactions, that means it's pretty fucking centralized. And that's scary to me, that people are putting massive amounts of wealth into something that they believe is decentralized when the numbers don't actually support that. Yep.
Totally.
I think so.
That's a pretty good show. That's where we are right now. Hey, if you're listening and you have answers and you want to come on the show and talk about them, like it doesn't matter how many followers you have.
Please.
If you have answers, then join us. This is one of the things that I think is great about this show is we're not after capital of any kind. We're not actually looking for money. We're not looking for follows and likes. We're not looking for that social capital.
Yeah.
We're really just looking for answers, and that's the only reason we do this. We don't have sponsors. We don't have, we technically have a
Patreon account.
What's it called? Where you can give us money. We have a Patreon. But really,
because
we just
we're amateurs. We love it.
To learn as much as possible, and we hope you do
love
too.
It. Yeah.
Yes, we do it.
All right,
for the
dude.
Love. So follow us. Keyword crypto. Yeah. Follow us
because we're looking for that social capital.
Because we're looking for you to follow us. Yeah, we're looking for social capital. I'm not telling people to follow us because we want their social capital.
Yes.
I'm telling them to follow us if they want answers, because we're gonna look for answers. So follow us if you want answers.
And we're not the ones trying to provide the answers. We're trying to help. We're trying to seek out the answers. So hopefully the people we find that can answer the questions can answer your questions too. So that's all we want. We don't pretend to have any answers. We just have more questions. All right, everybody. See you next time.